Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer. So it's been a very long day, so after about 10 hours of research, it's time to finally take a look at AMD's long-awaited Navi GPUs in the Radeon RX 5700, and most interestingly, the RX 5700 XT. Now yesterday I did this video right here where I was talking about the fact that if AMD can get their $399 GPU, which is now the new price of the 5700 XT, around the performance level of the GTX 1080 Ti, that card would be an absolute monster and totally worth the money. So today we finally got some information, and let's take a look and see if AMD have been able to deliver where Nvidia has failed with both RTX, the original RTX launch, and their Super launch. So let's check it out. Alrighty guys, so what I did here is I went through a bunch of the big tech outlets out there, and most of the ones that I trust. And what I did is I took the 1440p numbers for them, and instead of doing all the games that they each tested, I went ahead and picked the 6 titles that I feel right now basically have the best technology in them, the most advanced technology, the latest and greatest games, basically the newest engines. So to keep it fair, I went with 3 Nvidia titles. So I went with Metro Exodus, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Battlefield 5, and 3 AMD sponsored titles in Strange Brigade, Resident Evil 2, or Devil May Cry 5. Reason why there's a slash there is because it's both the same game engine, and then Far Cry 5 or New Dawn, because once again, it's the same game engine. Each reviewer out there is going to review things and do things a little bit different. That's why there's holes here. Some of them don't do 1% lows, they just do averages. But even still, I wanted to go ahead and use their numbers and see where things land. So let's take a look here. So starting off with the 5700 XT, we see an average of 91.2 frames per second in these titles. For the 2070 Super, we see an average of 93.6 frames per second in these titles, and then the 1080 Ti averages 91.6 frames per second. This comes out to the Super being 2.6% faster than the 5700 XT, and the 5700 XT essentially tying the 1080 Ti. That's pretty interesting. Moving on over to a non-text numbers, we have the 5700 XT coming in with an average of 83 frames per second, a 1% low of 51 frames per second. They did not test the 1080 Ti, so I don't have numbers for that, but we do have the 2070 Super at 86.8 frames per second, and then 59.1 average on the 1% lows. Now this does see the 5700 XT coming in, or the Super card coming in at 4.6% higher than the 5700 XT, and 17.1% on the 1% lows. Now, I'm going to discuss these results here in just a second, but I think there's a reason behind that. Moving on over to Tech Power Up, the only website or publication that I looked at that has all of these games. So starting things off with the 5700 XT coming in at 102.5 frames per second. Then we have the 2070 Super at 104.1, and then we have the 1080 Ti at 102.06. Okay, so this has the 2070 Super coming in at 1.6% higher on average, and then we once again see the 1080 Ti and 5700 XT virtually tied. And then finally, I just got these numbers. Steve just posted these, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video a little bit later, is I wanted to wait for Steve's numbers. So once again, the only game he's missing is Strange Brigade, but he's got both 1% lows and everything else, so that's good. On average, we have the 5700 XT at 94.6, and then the 1% lows at 77.8. We have the 2070 Super coming in on an average of 96.2, and then 1% low of 80.2. And then the 1080 Ti comes in at 101 average and 84 on the 1% lows. So compared to the 5700 XT, the Super is coming in at 1.7% higher on average, and then for the 1% lows, 3.1% higher. Now the 1080 Ti is coming in at 6.8% higher on average, and 8% higher on the 1% lows. Now, I did confirm with Steve, he used an aftermarket 1080 Ti. He was using a Gaming X model here, and that makes a lot of sense. More than likely, these were the reference model GTX 1080 Ti's. So if you have an aftermarket unit coming in 5-6% higher, that kind of makes a lot of sense. So this is literally worst case scenario between these two, because you have the stock reference card versus a nice aftermarket card. So even worst case scenario, the 5700 XT looks to be coming in about 6.8% of the 1080 Ti and virtually tying the 2070 Super, coming in approximately 2% across the board. Now, the Super seems to have a little bit better 1% lows from what we can see. Now, the AnandTech review here is the outlier, because this is the only one where the numbers really don't jive. And the reason for that, I believe, I can't say for certain, but I've heard that there was a new driver released just yesterday. Now, Steve from Gamers Nexus mentioned this in his review, that there was a new driver that came out late. I heard that they just got them yesterday, and this may have been using the driver before that. They had a driver previously that they could use for reviews, and then they got the new one just yesterday. So if that's the case, this could have just been due to older drivers, and that would be my guess, considering we have 2.6%, 1.6, 1.7, so somewhere around 2% higher for the 2070 Super on all of the other reviews besides the AnandTech review. So more than likely, I would just classify that one as the outlier, and then this makes sense because it is an aftermarket 1080 Ti. Alrighty, so this is one of the main reasons why I always wait for Steve. I really like his cost per frame charts. So if we take a look at this, this is the relative cost per frame with current market value. So this is taking into account the fact that things like Vegas at 56 are cheaper now, even the RTX 2060 at its discounted price when you can get them on sale. This is already factored in, so I really like that. Okay, we can see here that the RX 5700 and 5700 XT deliver about the equal cost per frame. So you're not actually paying any more for the 5700 over the 5700 XT. That $50 price difference makes up for that, and you're basically paying the same for a little bit more or less performance, depending on which way you go with it. Now, compared to their main competition, the 5700 performs basically the same as the 2060 Super, which we'll go over that here in a sec, but essentially it comes within 1%, so they're identical. And you can see that that's a significantly better value than the $400 card. It's $50 less, same performance. Can't really go wrong there. However, the 5700 XT at $399 or $400 is a much better value than the 2070 Super. Although it is about 2% faster, it's also 25% more expensive. So that is a massive difference right there, making the 5700 XT far more attractive and basically chart topping here. Well, alrighty guys, there it is. I mean, I went through a bunch of different reviews out there. I'm not gonna lie, the reviews were definitely a bit wonky, both with Ryzen and Navi. Things felt a little bit off, but more with Navi than Ryzen. With Ryzen, it seems more like just like a Windows issue or scheduler issue, you know, like I talked about in my previous video here today. But with the Navi GPUs, it looks like everybody's framing this in some weird perspective. You're finally getting 1080 Ti level performance for $399. An X70 class GPU that we never got from NVIDIA this whole time. We still don't have that level of performance at a $399 price point. This is what we've come to expect from GPU manufacturers over the years. If you think back when the Radeon 7 came out just a few months ago, everybody looked at that and was like, okay, it's about on par with the 1080 Ti, but it also costs $699, which is what the 1080 Ti cost. So everybody was like, yeah, if it was like $599 or $499, this would be a great deal. Well, now you get something that's just a little bit slower, within a few percentage points, at $399, delivering that same level of performance. The other big takeaway here is these drivers that they just got yesterday. These were obviously rushed. This is a brand new architecture. Turing has been out for the better part of 10 months now. It's going on a year. It's almost a year now. So clearly Turing's drivers are far more mature. So there's got to be even more performance in there. Whether it's 1% or 5% or 10%, there's more there. I mean, that's just the way this goes. Anytime any manufacturer comes out with a new architecture, there's always a little teething period. Even with NVIDIA, even with Intel, they all have a teething period. That's why with the Ryzen CPUs, there's probably some stuff that needs some fixing on the software side or BIOS side. I guarantee you there's something there and performance will look a little bit better. Same thing with these cards. They look great right now, and in fact, this looks a lot better than I was originally anticipating, because this is better than what AMD was telling us it was going to be at E3. This is more than 5% faster than an RTX 2070. This is only 2% slower than the Super card in newer games. Now, there are other games where NVIDIA is going to pull way ahead, and then there's some games where AMD pulls way ahead. That's the reason why I focused on these 6 games. For me, these are the most graphically demanding games out there in different segments. I mean, obviously all the NVIDIA sponsored cards, I mean, those are all geared towards ray tracing and all these new effects and things like that. And all the games that I picked for AMD are using like Vulkan. The only game that's a little bit older on an older engine is the Far Cry games, but it is a very GPU demanding game. And I wanted to have at least one DirectX 11 title in there, just so we can kind of see how these compare. So that's the reason why I chose those games, and I tried to make it as balanced as possible. And most of the reviewers did most of these games, so this way it made it kind of easy for us to go ahead and make that chart there for you. But anyway, overall, I am actually blown away by this. This is much better performance than I was anticipating. And then with that $50 price drop, I was like, maybe the performance isn't going to be there, but then we got some leaks, some leaked benchmarks out there showing the 5700 XT like right in line with the 2070 Super. And I'm like, if it's there, it's basically on par with the 1080 Ti, and we finally have 1080 Ti performance at $399. That's awesome, guys. We finally got what we wanted. So everybody out there that's really upset about these prices, you really shouldn't be. This is what we were wanting just 5 months ago from the Radeon 7. But now it's not okay? I mean, you really have to sit there and take a step back. This is one generation, just one generation newer, and we're getting the X80 Ti class performance for $399. Now, granted, these cards with the blower style cooler, a lot of the people out there saying that they're really hot and loud and this and that. It sounds like that they can keep them cool, but it sounds like it does get a little bit loud. So I personally would wait for an AIB model. According to Steve in his video, he said that they should be coming here in the not too distant future. So I would probably hold off. I'd also wait a little bit, let drivers mature a little bit more, and revisit this in about a month, because I have a feeling that these new Navi cards are going to look even stronger just 1 month from now. One major driver update could bring, make up that 2% gap and have the 5700 XT matching the 2070 Super. So that's really awesome, and with better coolers, who knows, there might be some more overclocking headroom, and it might be able to match that AIB 1080 Ti. And honestly, for me, I couldn't ask for any more than that from AMD for a lower high-end graphics card. Basically, you get 1440p gaming, and then you can even get 4K 60 gaming. If you check out, Cortex actually did a review, which I didn't realize he was doing reviews, but he did some reviews on these, and that's what he brought up. It's basically an entry-level 4K gaming card. So if you have one of those Samsung 4K TVs, I mean, they're 60 hertz only anyway, you could pair this with, a 5700 XT with that television, and boom, you got FreeSync in your living room doing 4K natively. That's awesome. For $400, I mean, that's blowing me away. The 5700, even though price-wise, it's right in line, I mean, you can see it's basically tied. For me, I don't know. I just don't like it as much as I like the XT. The XT gets you to that 1080 Ti level of performance. Obviously, the 5700 is not quite there. And looking at Steve's numbers here, you can see that on average, the 5700 comes in 1% faster than the 2060 Super, and that's mostly due to Forza Horizon being such a good game for AMD. You take that out of the equation, it swings back 1% the other way. Either way, they're basically tied. Now, it is $50 less. I still feel that the 5700 at $299 would have been the killer price point. If you look at the 5700 XT versus the 2070 Super, there's a $100 price gap there, and it makes the 2070 Super look dumb. For $50 more, people could justify for the RTX reason. Now, like I've said many times, for me, RTX is worth that much until the vast majority of games start using it, and if the 2060 Super can even run those graphics, because right now most games require the 2080 Ti for RTX to make any sort of sense. But if it can, and there's a lot of ifs there, so for me, it's just not a feature that's worth it to me. Personally, I'd save the money. Now at $299, the 5700 would make the 2060 Super look just as dumb as the 2070 Super does compared to the 5700 XT. So yeah, I mean, did you guys think that it was going to come out being that good? I didn't. I honestly thought it was going to be 5 or 10% slower than what we got here. But nope, 1080 Ti level performance, $400. We're finally there. I mean, it took AMD a little bit longer this generation. I mean, NVIDIA is 10 months in, but at the same time, it's one generation later. We're finally getting a true X70 class GPU, a true $399 GPU that's actually worth the price. We're getting it from AMD, and we're getting it here today. So I'm really excited about that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Did you guys realize that it was this good? I know a lot of reviewers don't actually look at their own data and don't look at it that way, but do you guys think that's enough now? I know a lot of people thought I was crazy when I did my video yesterday saying, oh, there's no way the 5700 XT would be on par with the 1080 Ti. Well, it is. I mean, the 1080 Ti will crush it in older games. I mean, AMD's just got these drivers out, so I would only compare it in newer titles, the main titles that most reviewers are doing, kind of like the way that I did it here, because that's what AMD is obviously going to be optimizing for. If you're looking at, like, some of the guys are still using, like, Witcher 3 and just some really older games, obviously, it's not there yet, and the 1080 Ti is still going to be faster in those older games. However, moving forward in newer games, Pascal's an older architecture. It's aging. You know, newer games, DirectX 12, Vulkan, the new AMD card is going to perform better. So it's more future-proof. So it really just kind of depends on what you're trying to do there. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I'm really interested in that. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. And if you'd like to help support the channel for as little as $1 a month, you can really help me get this stuff on hand so we can do our own testing, check this stuff out, and then I can give you my thoughts that way. Thank you so much, guys. That's all I have for today. I'm going to go rest up a little bit, and I will catch you guys in the next video.